Hello and welcome back to Retro 48K. I'm back. I'm trying to get back into the swing of things, so I thought best way to do it is a video response. Nice, easy video, although this might take a bit of editing because it might be a long one. So what is it? It's a video response. This has been doing the rounds. It's the top 25 games in this century, basically, over the last 25 years or so. Some great videos already done of this. I've put a bit of rules on myself though, because if I didn't, then this is likely to be full of the same games over and over again. So I've said no remakes, not classing any remakes in this, and only one game from a series. So I couldn't have, half the Resident Evil games or whatever in here. It's only one per series, which kind of makes things a bit more interesting and you'll get a bit more variety of games. These are in no particular order. I've put them on numbers, but that's just to help me keep track of what I'm putting on the video editing, etc. So yeah, it's going to be a long video. Without further ado, let's get straight into it with my first pick for the top 25 game. First on the list is Metroid Prime. This was a dead easy pick. It's it'd be in my top 10 games of all time. It's absolutely superb because Super Metroid is one of my favourite games of all time, and this was a brilliant follow-up to it. It takes everything that I loved about Super Metroid and just makes it 3D. What's not to love? It follows the traditional series sort of lone protagonist model. It's more about exploration and searching and that sense of getting lost, etc., than it is about shooting, but the shooting is still pretty strong, and that kind of separated it from a lot of first-person shooters at the time. I mean, this is the first one I remember to actually have jumping in a first-person shooter that didn't feel janky and awful, and it was actually fun to control and fun to explore and bounce around the levels. It has a fairly unique control mechanic which might put a lot of people off today, but it does allow you to switch weapons really quickly at the touch of a button. It's definitely worth checking out. They absolutely nailed 3D Metroid first time with this one, and it's a highlight of the series. Next up, I think you've got to put something from the Halo franchise on this, and the only question is which one. Now, I think 1 is still probably the best single player experience. Reach is probably the best story, but 3 I think is the best all-rounder for me. It's got a great story that finishes off that initial trilogy really well and quite satisfying. The campaign itself is really fun. Lots of it maintains that original Halo feel that was so good, and the multiplayer is absolutely superb. It's it harks back to at the time, the guys I work with, we'd maybe get like 8 of us or so, and we'd play on Sunday nights, just playing around with Forge and customizing the maps, and then having games, and then taking them into work the next morning with some screenshots and stuff like that. It was just great having that group of friends playing on it, and even 4-player campaign was, that split screen co-op campaign was done previously, but this was the first sort of 4-player co-op campaign, and it was great having 4 years to do the campaign and trying to do it on Legendary, etc. So yeah, Halo 3 has got to be on the list for me. So this should come as no surprise to anyone who has watched my channel before I deleted it and re-uploaded everything. Resident Evil, I'm a massive fan of the series, and it was just a question of which one I wanted to put on here. If I'd allowed remakes, then that would have been a trickier decision, because the remakes of 1 and 2 and 4 are all fantastic. But going off the originals, it came down to a choice really for me between 4 and 7. They are my favourite of the new original ones in this side of the year 2000. And I kind of had to go with 4 with just kind of its impact. It revitalised the series, and while people might say it feels a bit clunky now, it still has the tank controls in it. It still feels like a Resident Evil game. I can understand why some people don't like it, because it's not survival horror as it was, but it's still got enough of that sort of horror elements. I mean, that opening scene where they're just pouring out the village and they're not zombies and you don't know what's going on is just standout. It's the fact that they've copied it over and over again shows you how good that was. So yeah, it's still got enough horror elements, and it's still cheesy as hell, which is why I love the Resident Evil series. So yeah, for me, I had to put Resident Evil 4 on here. So moving on. So next we've got Red Dead Redemption 2. This was a tricky choice. Actually, before I get into that, first up, apologies, the colours are a bit washed out on this. I captured this way back when, and it was starting just to record HDR stuff, and it was difficult getting the settings right and etc. So apologies for that. But Red Dead Redemption, yeah, it was difficult choice between the first and second one. They're both absolutely stunning games, and to be honest, I wouldn't argue with you if you wanted to put the first over the second. The second, for me, the story just hit a bit better, regardless of the absolutely amazing graphics and physics engine and everything else, which is truly awesome. It's the story that sells this one for me, and meant it had to be on the list. It's one of the truly great ones. It's just that really slow pace that you really get to know the character and the change over time. Go check it out. It's Red Dead Redemption 2. And now for something completely different. It's Dawn of War. I absolutely love this franchise. Each game in the series is subtly different. You know, the first is very RTS, the second one is more hero, sort of management of that type of resources. But the first one to me just stands out. I absolutely, massive Warhammer 40k fan. I love collecting and painting the armies. And this is just a 40k fan's wet dream, this game. There's a reason why it's coming back this year for a fourth one. It is awesome. You've got plenty of factions, especially with all the expansions to it. And underneath the hood is a really good RTS game that balances the, going out, getting resources versus base building, so that people can't just sit and turtle in there. So it's really well balanced. Definitely check it out if you're an RTS fan. It's Warhammer, Dawn of War. What more can you want? Check this one out. Definitely has to be in the list for me. Next up, we've got probably the newest game on my list, and it's Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Don't let the title put you off. This is probably the best game I've played in about 20 years. That's how good this game is. It is absolutely phenomenal. This year I was kind of moving away from gaming, if I'm honest. I'd got sick of all the live services and broken games, and games that seem to be more designed by committee to appeal to everyone than actually appealing to no one, and just everything becoming rather bland. And then this thing came along and reinvigorated my love of gaming. It's one of those rare games where everything seems to come together to be better than the sum of its parts. It's gorgeously written. The story is phenomenal. I won't spoil it by talking anything about the story. You really got to appreciate it by playing it yourself. And the gameplay is great. It takes that traditional RPG turn-based combat and just adds parry mechanics, so you feel a bit like you're playing in Dark Souls, because you've got parries and dodges, and it really means that at no point in the combat are you just sitting waiting for your turn. You're constantly waiting, right, when do I have to parry, when do I have to dodge, and it really engages you a lot more in combat. It was masterstroke really for that. The music is absolutely phenomenal, and the other thing about it as well is I think it sheds a bit of light on the industry. This was made for, in today's world, relatively cheap, under 10 million, and it shows you what can be done with a dedicated team of people who have an artistic vision for what they're trying to do, rather than let's just throw hundreds of millions at it and have textures and polish to a nth degree and a soulless game. This is far from it. This is all about soul, and it deserves all the awards it got this year. So Clair Obscur had to be on the list for me. Now this one was another easy one. I love survival horror games, so therefore you have to have what is widely considered to be the greatest survival horror game of all time on there. It is Silent Hill 2. You could have the remake if you wanted to. I'm not putting remakes on this, but I think if you don't have that nostalgia for the original, there's very little to choose between the two. The original, I think, trumps it, not just for nostalgia, but for it's got that ethereal quality to it. The datedness of the graphics actually works in its favour. It's kind of got that weird VHS quality to it that works. But if you were around for VHS tapes and things, then that's not going to be an issue for you. So you can go with the new one. But the game itself is absolutely phenomenal. It's got a brilliant story. It's one of those games that was round about the turn like 2000-ish when these were coming out. It was pushing games in a more mature vein, so it's a much more mature and thoughtful story. So really worth checking out if you haven't already. It's Silent Hill 2. Next up, it's Sekiro. This game I think is probably going to be a bit Marmite for some people. It's either love it or hate it, really. It's very different, I think. On the surface, a lot of people will just put it in Soulsborne series and just leave it at that. But I think this is very different to FromSoft's other games. The other games are about choice more than anything. There's much more freedom in how you build your character and the RPG elements. There's one real way to play the game, which is the way the game has been designed for, and I think it benefits from that immensely. It's very focused experience. There's lots of replayability, and the level design is such that you can tackle bosses in different orders and things like that to give that flexibility of choice there. But in terms of core gameplay, it is purely down to you have to learn to parry and block, and this gameplay probably isn't the best because it's from my first run through, but I've played through this game probably about a dozen times since it came out. It is probably my favourite From Software title. I go between this and another game that may or may not be on this list further down. But yeah, if you haven't played Sekiro and you love Edo era Japan and you like your games a bit difficult, because this is probably From Software's most difficult game as well, purely because of that focus on gameplay and the way they want you to play it. There's very little you can do there to it's not like you can summon or anything on this. You just have to, unfortunately, get good, as the saying goes. But it is such a rewarding game because of that. When it clicks and you finally beat them bosses, it is absolutely phenomenal. It's got some of the best bosses in FromSoft's history as well. Some great massive beasts to more focused sort of one-on-one samurai fights. You really do check it out. It's a brilliant game, and I would heartily recommend it, not just as Souls fans, but anyone who likes sort of action games. It's an evolution of Ninja Gaiden and things to me. So yeah, Sekiro is on the list. Now this one was another easy one. One per franchise. Well, it would only ever be this, because for my view, Final Fantasy. This was meant to be the new dawn of Final Fantasy when it came out, and it was going to, taking it, voice acting and to that next level, and it's been downhill ever since. This was kind of the peak of the series in terms of the modern era. It's up there with the likes of Final Fantasy VII and IX in terms of and VI in terms of the greats of the series. It's got a phenomenal battle system that is arguably the best that Final Fantasy has ever had. It's really flexible. The upgrade system in the sphere grid can appear a bit linear, but if you've got the international version, then there's a lot of choice in there. And the story is pretty damn good too. It's not the best Final Fantasy story, but it is a damn good story. And there's some good characterization in this, and it's a fairly unique and interesting setting for the game as well. So if you like RPGs, you're going to like Final Fantasy X. Time for another landmark series. It's Grand Theft Auto, and which to pick? Well, I've gone with Vice City. Yes, objectively, San Andreas and 5 are much better games in terms of graphics and gameplay, etc. But that 80s aesthetic, just, I love nostalgia. It's why I run a YouTube channel on about retro games. So this is, for me, just the peak of the series. It's that Miami Vice sort of vibe to it that just really puts it out in front of the others. Hopefully they can repeat that in 6. I somehow doubt it. It's also that era of Grand Theft Auto where it wasn't so big that it's daunting. You've got a reasonable chance of getting 100% on this, and then you get weird glitches like this that are on screen now that just add to that experience. So it's GTA Vice City. Next up, it's Metal Gear Solid 3. Big hitters keep on coming. A lot of people would say Metal Gear Solid is one of the foremost series in gaming. I think some of the titles in it are overrated, but 3 and 5 in particular, Phantom Pain, are absolutely phenomenal titles. This one just edges it for me because it's got a more self-contained story. A lot of the bits of 5's story that really set it above the others, you have to sort of know the history of the series, whereas this, you could go into it cold. This could be your first Metal Gear Solid game. It's also probably one of the hardest because it's set in the 60s. You don't get the radar or anything that you're used to, so it is a very different experience, and it's all the better for it. It is much more, a lot slower paced, and if you put it on the harder difficulties, it becomes a completely different game altogether, where you have to survive in the jungle, you have to hunt the animals. They're not just there as some quirky gameplay mechanic, you have to do that to keep your stamina up. So definitely recommend this one. It's MGS3. Next up, it's Doom 2016. Now, I'm allowing this one because it's not technically a remake. It actually continues the story of the Doom franchise. It's more of a soft reboot, really. It is phenomenal. It takes the series back to its roots. As much as I enjoyed Doom 3 and its more survival horror guys, I think this is a far better experience for going back to the series' roots of just all-out run and gun, boomer shooter style scenario. And while Doom Eternal is an absolutely fantastic game, I think they just ever so slightly overcomplicated combat, whereas this has that nice balance of enough to keep it interesting, but not so much that I'm constantly like Doom Eternal, especially on the expansion pack, can somewhat feel like you're managing resources more than actually combat, whereas this is just all-out fun shooting. So it's Doom 2016. Next up, it's another From Software game, and it's Elden Ring. I'm counting this as my Dark Souls series game, because otherwise it would have been a tough one to pick between which Dark Souls game goes on here. Elden Ring, though, is just the peak of that series to me. It's a massive open world for you to explore, full of interesting dungeons and bosses to find, and it's got pieces like I'm showing here on the castle where there's loads of little nooks and crannies to find alternate routes through. It tackles the big problem with From Software games as well in difficulty, and there's lots of ways to make it as challenging or as easy as you want, with summons and bringing other players in and all that type of stuff. You can not use them to gauge the difficulty to whatever you want it to be. So yeah, Elden Ring, it kind of represents the peak of that Dark Souls era of game to me, so it has to be on this list. Next up, it's Call of Duty Modern Warfare. I think it's really easy to see Call of Duty now and kind of just dismiss it a lot because of what it's become over the years. It's just been that yearly installment doing it to death. But this game had just such a lot of impact when it first came out. The campaign is brilliant, really fun for all those really set-piece memorable moments, such as the nuke going off, and everyone remembers that ghillie suit mission. And I still remember that trailer where the guy stands up, and you were just looking at an open field, and it stands up, and it's just like pops out of the grass. It was such a really defining moment of sort of this era of gaming, and I still think the multiplayer holds up to this day. Before it got all microtransaction-y in the later versions and seasons and all that, this just had a really core fun multiplayer, which made this is the nucleus of what COD would become today. So yeah, I think for its impact alone, you've got to have Call of Duty Modern Warfare in there. Okay, next up we've got Bloodborne, the final Souls From Software game on my list, and this to me is it's Dark Souls but better, because it brings in elements that I love from other genres. So you've got the Lovecraftian style into it, you've got the horror elements, but you've still got that flexibility of build that comes with the Dark Souls games, and just great, more attacking gameplay. It's none of this hiding behind shields and things. You've got to dodge to get out of the way and attack, and it emphasizes that aggression. You if you get hit, you get health back from hitting them back. So yeah, and just the aesthetic alone, it's just a shame it's still locked at how it launched. I would love to see a remaster of this just to make use of the new consoles and things. But yeah, it's Bloodborne. I go back and forth whether this or Sekiro is my favourite From Software game. It'll be one of the two of them. But yeah, it's got to be on the list for me. It's Bloodborne. And now we've got the last 10. Thanks for sticking with me. It's been a long slog. Yeah, it's Super Mario Galaxy. I think it's easy to sort of forget about this because it was on the Wii, and a lot of people kind of discounted the Wii, like hardcore gamers. Oh, it's not a proper console, but it is, and it is brilliant. This one, it's so imaginative. There's so many ideas in here, and different. It's different from every other Mario game in terms of Nintendo just threw ideas at the wall. The Galaxy setting allowed them just to chuck those ideas out. They had so many that actually Super Mario Galaxy 2 is just the ideas they had left over, and here you go, stick Yoshi in it, away you go. It's fantastic. The soundtrack's brilliant. It's probably the best 3D Mario bar Mario 64 for me. Yeah, it's Super Mario Galaxy. What more is there to say about it? You've got to have a Mario game in these lists, I think, and this is my choice. Next up, it's sticking with Nintendo. It's Legend of Zelda: Wind Waker. The footage is from the HD version, but the GameCube version is just as good. So I'm not doing remasters. So yeah, GameCube version it is. But yeah, it's just, I know a lot of Zelda fans will be like, Breath of the Wild's the best one in years, and going, and it did need that refresh. The series had gotten a bit stale, but I still think this one represents sort of the core of what Zelda was about. That sense of adventure that you get from just jumping out in the seas and going off on the boat, and it still has what I love about the Zelda games, and that's those really interesting long form dungeons. As good as Breath of the Wild is, it's only really got 4 dungeons in it in terms of the animal thing guys. I forgot what they're called now, but this one has the proper core dungeons, and the shrines from Breath of the Wild, they're more just like individual puzzles for me than what the dungeons represent in this. So I prefer my Zeldas like this. It still had that sense of freedom that you get from going out in the sea, but it had a bit more structure to it. And it's probably, I'm going to stick my neck on the line and say, the best 3D Zelda. I actually prefer this even over Ocarina of Time, even though I've probably played Ocarina more. Other than Link to the Past, which is the best one, I think this is the best 3D. So yeah, on the list, it's Legend of Zelda: Wind Waker. Next up, I had to get a racing game on the list, but which one? There's been some great ones in the last few years, but I still keep coming back to Burnout Paradise. It's got everything you would want. It's got insane crashes, great stunts, loads to discover. You've got all the billboards to find, all the shortcuts to get. It's got races, it's got time trials. There's an absolute ton of content, loads of cars, and most importantly, it retains that fun factor that racing games should have, and that blinding sense of speed when you get up to full speed on there. There's a ton of content in here. It's got an amazing soundtrack that you can't play on YouTube because you'll get demonetized. So yeah, it's everything you would want in a racing game. What more is there to say about it? Yeah, there's more realistic ones out there, and I'd actually love a future one because this is getting quite old now, but still holds up today. I was only playing it just this week. Absolutely brilliant racing game. Still more to discover, and you can drop in and out of it, which a lot of racers these days just want you to spend your entire life on, so that's another reason why I like it. So yeah, it's Burnout Paradise. Next up, Streets of Rage 4. Streets of Rage 2 is probably one of my all-time favourite games. I've played it, I played it to death as a kid, and I still play it every now and again as an adult as well. And 4 it managed to do that mythical thing of capturing the spirit of the original but modernising it as well. You've got loads of great combos to do. It's still a traditional side-scrolling beat 'em up though as well, which a few and far between. Well, before this one came out, there's quite a few of them now. Graphics, I know some people were disappointed that it wasn't all pixel arty, but they are quite impressive. The animation's pretty solid, and the soundtrack is phenomenal, which it needs to be for Streets of Rage. And it's got that arcadey quality of trying to beat the high score, trying to get that S rank on all the levels, or mania difficulty and all that kind of stuff, and keeping that combo going. So yeah, still play this constantly. It's Streets of Rage 4. Next up, it's Red Alert 2. This is, other than maybe the first Command & Conquer, I think it's my favourite in the Command & Conquer series, just because it has that balance between the different factions. But it's not balanced in that they feel and play the same, it's balanced in that they actually feel unique and interesting to play. The Soviets are all about raw power and damage dealing, whereas the Allies have got loads of quirky tools to attack things in different ways. Because of the graphic styling, it still looks good today. And I just spent an inordinate amount of time on this at uni, playing with mates over a LAN. It was such great fun, and downloading custom maps and using the map editor and stuff. And the add-ons are pretty good for it as well. So yeah, it's Command & Conquer Red Alert 2, and it's on my list. Into the last 5 now, and I had to have a beat 'em up in there, and my choice is King of Fighters 13. King of Fighters series has always been mechanically strong, really interesting to play, loads of unique characters and design, but in terms of the series as a whole, I don't think there's you'd struggle to find a more beautiful looking game than this. In terms of, I mean, look at the background detail they've got on there. The characters are all beautifully animated. I think only maybe Street Fighter 3 would give this a run in terms of animation on a beat 'em up. It is just beautiful to look at. Even if you don't like fighting games, you can enjoy just watching it probably. But as a fighting game, it's got everything you want. Like I say, the King of Fighters series is legendary and is, seen as even it was sad kind of to me when the series went into the 3D realm recently. I mean, yeah, the mechanics are all there, but just I'm talking over this watching my edit, and it still just looks beautiful to this day. All the characters just animate gorgeously. So yeah, it's King of Fighters 13. Next up, it's The Witcher 3, the only game on this list I have not actually finished. That's how good I rate this game. I haven't finished it, and I'm still putting it on the list. And it's not because I don't like the game, it's because every time I pick this game up to play and start doing the story, I usually get distracted by just the wealth of side quests and things in this game. For me, I feel about Witcher 3 the way most people feel about Skyrim. I just get lost in it, just playing it, and I don't know whether it's Skyrim's never really appealed to me much. Maybe it's because you have to build the character there, whereas this has a voiced character and it's not just people talking at me, and it immerses me more in the experience. But yeah, Witcher 3 is just a phenomenally good game. There's so much to do. I just get lost in doing side quests, hunting the various beasts for villages and things like that, than the story. I've put probably about 80 hours into it and still not actually finished the game. So yeah, that says how good a game it is, that I'm willing to put it on here, even though could have a horrendous ending for all I know, but I think it would still be worth playing. Yeah, got to be on the list. It's Witcher 3. The next one is Half-Life 2. I think even if you're not a fan of this one, you kind of have to put it on the list for its impact in gaming. There's no other series really that's done more for first-person shooters than the Half-Life series, and the second one is just a brilliant game. It introduced physics, like Havoc physics. I think it was the first game to do. You can have great fun with the gravity gun. The story is pretty good, and it does that what I like in games, where it tells the story not just through cutscenes or areas where it locks you in while people talk to you, but there's little bits of pieces of of like nuggets of detail hidden throughout the levels. Like you'll walk through a room and on the board there'll be paper cuttings of the fact that there was a 24 hours war and humanity lost in 24 hours or whatever, 2 hours or whatever the time period was. It's been a while since I've done that section, but yeah, it's one of the games that you come back to every now and again and you'll play it, and it's still just as fun. It does have a bit of a problem just after sort of the introduction start, which is great, with the middle section where it relies a bit too much on look at what we can do with physics in terms of seesaw puzzles and things like that. But other than that, it's just a phenomenal game that looked great for the time. Looks a bit dated now, but still holds up pretty well, and the gameplay is just as fun as ever. So it's Half-Life 2. Getting down to the last couple now, and it's Batman Arkham Asylum. I think you've got to have the Arkham series on this list just purely for its impact. You know, everything copied its combat system. But in terms of just a Batman game, it's absolutely phenomenal. You've got the brilliant sort of detective mode that brings in sort of his detective elements. You've got the combat that's great, and then you've got that predator sequences where you can, you know, you're stealthily taking down enemies and you've got to pick them in the right order and use all your abilities. It is just a phenomenally well-made series. The reason I've gone for Arkham Asylum over, say, City, which is a much bigger game and more open world, or Night, which is even bigger still, is Night I felt got bogged down a bit too much with the Batmobile sequences that felt more like a arcade shooter than a Batman game. And I went with Asylum over City just purely because while City's got some really great memorable bosses like Freeze and things, I prefer the overall smaller, more intimate setting of Asylum. It feels much more like a kind of Zelda Metroid game where you can see the full map, you can see an area that you've got to go to, but you've got to get a power up to get there, like be it your explosive gel or something along those lines. So it feels a much tighter crafted experience and doesn't overwhelm the player with so much to do and so much to find. So yeah, I've gone for Arkham Asylum in the Arkham series. It has to. And last but not least, we've got the God of War series. I had to include a game from this series, and I've gone with God of War 3. For me, I prefer Kratos in his angry mode rather than grumpy mode from the more newer games. And you don't get much better than the third one, really. In terms of sheer spectacle, this game is just phenomenal. I mean, there's levels and bosses where you are fighting the Titan Kronos, where the camera pulls out and pans and zooms to show you the full size of this beast, and then seamlessly in gameplay zooms right back in, and you can even be like fighting while the camera's pulled out. You can see Kratos' swings going in there. It rounds off the trilogy nicely, and I personally would have been quite happy if they'd just left the series there. Story-wise, probably the first one is probably actually the best of the three, but in terms of the peak of gameplay elements and everything else with it, I've got to give it to the third one. And that kind of brings me to the end of the list. Well done for sticking with me so far. Yeah, thanks for sticking with us, because this has been a beast of a half an hour so far. Yeah, so that's my picks for the top 25 games in the last 25 years. Now, obviously, if I didn't limit myself to one game per series and no remakes and things, the list it definitely would look very different. But I think I've got a good mix of games there, something for everyone, and I enjoy them all. And I've tried to pick ones that aren't just good games, but also had an impact on gaming as well. I mean, shout outs to the Assassin's Creed series. I would have liked to have included one from there, but the series went off in a different direction than I originally enjoyed with the games. The first game, I liked the idea of you've got one person to assassinate in the city and you've got to do smaller missions to figure out a way to assassinate them, actually in the direction that the Hitman games kind of went in. So I would have preferred Assassin's Creed to have done that. And I did actually want one of the Battlefield games on this list, Battlefield 3 or 4, but to be honest, I tried to play on them to record some footage for this and found that they're just dead, and I couldn't really put a game that is there's hardly any servers running for now, with hardly any people playing in the top 25 games. I wanted games that you could still play today in some way, shape or form without having to play a sequel or anything. So yeah, they dropped off the list. And I would have liked to include Killzone 2 in here, but I just didn't have room. When that originally came out, I really liked the weight and the physics behind it, and everything felt impactful, and it was more a slower, methodical shooter than most. So yeah, that would have been nice to include, but I just ran out of room. But what do you guys think? I'd love to hear in the comments what your games would be, or what any you disagree with or think you should be added on here. Put them in the comments, or link me to videos that you've done yourself. Like I said at the start, I'll link to other people's videos in the description that I've seen. I've seen a couple of them, so they'll go in there. And yeah, thanks for watching. I've been Retro48K, and I'll see you next time.